The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. The final episode of Season 8 with Jess Kimura is just about ready to go. I've had an incredible season this year with 25 amazing guests. I added a YouTube video component. I visited High Cascade Summer Camp and Blaise Boot Camp. I got to ride epic Tahoe Powder with Dave Downing, the Hatchett brothers, and Corey Achtoong. I rode Bear Valley with Blaise and Sione, and Roach and his ripping son Ryder. Designed and built a custom wired board with Rob and Peppe and with artwork by the great Cas Nahui. And I just got a bluebird pow day at Mount Baker with Anson, who was one of the very first shredders I met at Boardroom way back in 1993. As always, no one knows what'll happen next season. Will it start early? Will there be tons of snow? Who knows? One thing's for sure, I'll be back with Season 9 starting November 1st with some amazing guests. I truly want to thank all of the listeners who reached out this year. You're the reason I do the show. And I'll be thanking all the sponsors after this intro. They're the reason I can do the show. So enjoy this season recap. I'll miss you. I'm quitting my mailman job this summer and not sure what I'll be doing for work, but hopefully a big part of it will be podcasting. I'm nervous and excited to follow this new path. So thank you for listening to or watching the show. It means the world to me. Season 8 was sponsored by Wired Snowboards, who build custom handcrafted amazing snowboards about 10 minutes from my house. Thank you, Rob and Peppe, for your continued support. Thanks, Guy and Fred, and thanks, Devin, for being Devin Walsh. And on Optics make absolutely the best goggles in the world, and I appreciate their support so much. Burton's the company behind Anson, and they've been supporting snowboarding for way more than 40 years. I'm proud that FNRad is sponsored by such an iconic company. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop is still going strong as Vancouver's premier snowboard shop, carrying everything you need for all types of snowboarding. Their online shop, boardroomshop.com, ships to Canada and the US and is awesome. Check it out. Ken Achenbach sponsored the show this year with the Pro Standard GoPro accessories. Find an epicagent.com. This place is awesome. Ken Ach Real Estate and his daughter's band, Kaya J and the Drink Tickets. Ken's the most enthusiastic snowboarder I've ever met, and he was a part of so much snowboarding history. It's just nuts. Thank you, Ken, for supporting FNRad. And Tribute Board Shop was established in Nelson in 2003. The name is a tribute to Craig, so you know they've been supporting snowboarding culture since the beginning. Check out the Tribute Lounge on YouTube and make sure you subscribe. Check out tributeshop.ca for epic snowboard, skate, and lifestyle gear. Thank you, Mark Fawcett and Shane Johnson, for your continued support of the show and the community. Love you guys. I'm so stoked to have such amazing people sponsor the show. Dakine, Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, and Volcom all supported FNRad this season with essential gear for me to get up the mountain. Thank you to Mike Costigan and Brian Shaw from Dakine. Marcus at Grouse is making amazing things happen up there. Keep up the stellar work. Thank you, Seymour, and thank you, Tyler Element from Volcom, for keeping me in the fresh Gore-Tex Volcom gear. These are great partners to work with. Thank you all for your support. Here are some highlights from Season 8.
And I think, what we were talking about is people who are like, oh, they were a pro snowboarder and now they're professional fishermen, or they're right, you say, like they're really into mountain biking. There's a lot of fun stuff to do. I don't want to knock anything specifically, but I took a long break. I took 12 years off and I didn't snowboard that much.
Wow.
And that was mental, that was like being a professional snowboarder, and snowboarding loves you, and then you get older and snowboarding doesn't love you in the same way. It hurts your feelings, and it was painful, and I needed to sort of stay away from it I'd like to say to protect myself, but maybe it was misguided. Regardless, it was what I did. But there wasn't anything else I replaced it with. I just was miserable. I mean, I make art and I paint a lot and I love making art, but like it's still not the same thing as snowboarding. And like There was no other activity, and I tried a lot of stuff. Played a bunch of tennis. I like that. Surfed a bunch. I like that. Drank a bunch of wine. That was nice. None of it's snowboarding. Not all of it's good for you, you know. So I don't get how you would be active and able.
Right.
Like, I get it that some people's knees wear out.
Yeah.
I get it that some people, their back gets hurt or just whatever, and they can't do it. I don't get the people who are like, yeah, I was a pro and now I ride mountain bikes all the time. Again, someone's going to hate me for saying it, and I don't want to be the guy that is criticizing something, but it's just not as fun as snowboarding is.
It was really cool because I remember there was like a public safety announcement from the governor of California that said, get outside, it's good for you.
Nice.
We're going to keep resorts open. It's important for your mind and body and spirit, and to quantify and say how important, which we know, like, I'm sure you go long, you know, there's certain times in your life where you can't get outdoors, and then you get outdoors and you're like, oh my God, it's like, you know, a bong hit of life. And to have that is it's, we've known it's powerful stuff, and now like the medical community is telling us it's powerful stuff.
We're hearing a lot more of that now.
I don't know. It's like there's this moment when you get really in tune with whatever you're doing. You sort of listen to just instincts, and sometimes you hit jumps, sometimes you don't. And every time your mind or whatever, you feel bad about something and you force yourself to hit the jump because you're like, this is my job, whatever, I get hurt. Like almost every single time I'm like, something bad happens. And so I've learned to kind of like feel it out, because I'm like, well, I'm going to keep doing this for years, so I need to know when to go and when not to go. And so there's been times when I'm like, you know, I'm not going to hit this jump. I was with Devin actually in Alaska, and he jumped over this gully, and it was like a heel slide turn for me to ride in all the way. And I looked at the trajectory where I have to go, and I was like, if I come off my heel edge a little bit, I'm going to actually fly into the gully, into the rocks. And there's not enough time to make that adjustment. And I just didn't feel like it was worth it. So I just was like, yeah, maybe on my toe edge I would feel slightly different. But just coming down and flying this turn on my heel edge just didn't feel right. And, you know, Devin got a cover shot. It was like so worth it. He was the only one hitting it. It was amazing. Me and Andreas were both watching, and we're just like, wow, that's sick.
You look at a piece in a museum, like you go in there and you see a bowl, a bentwood bowl, or a box, a bentwood box, and it's heavily patinaed, and it's, you know, hundreds of years old. But that piece was completely integrated in our culture. You know, that box, the ones that are carved, been painted, those are typically owned by high-ranking chiefs of a clan. And we'd store our sacred ceremonial items in those bentwood boxes. You know, the foundation for our culture is our kuik, which is our potlatch. That was when you'd see, that's like the central nucleus for our culture. You know, a kuik. Kuik means to give. And so you'd host a kuik, and, you know, the art form is on its true stage. You'd see the true intention of the art form on display. You know, the masks were worn, the beautiful bowls were used to serve food to everyone that came there. And the bentwood boxes would hold our sacred ceremonial objects. It's called an atu, whether it be a clan hat, or they'd bring it out and wear it just for that occasion. You know, then colonization, the first thing they did was ban the kuik. You weren't allowed to do that anymore. You weren't allowed to sing songs. You weren't allowed to celebrate your culture, you know. And a lot of the atu, those pieces were just taken. You know, pieces that had been within the clan for generations, you know, scattered all over the world. And so, you know, that's another reason, another piece of, you know, why I do what I do. I want to bring it back.
I mean, I know that there are a lot of people have conspiracy theories about Big Pharma and everything
Absolutely.
else, but trust me, you don't want an 18-inch scar down the center of your chest. It sucks.
Right.
I'm super glad that my life is going to get a whole bunch better right now.
Yeah.
But going through what I went through in the last year sucks.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to.
How could it have been different if you would have gone for screening in your 30s?
In my 30s, even in the beginning of my 40s.
Okay.
The odds of me having a full blockage they go down exponentially.
So I should go get a screening for sure. Anyone that's out there,
you get a blood panel. If you're in your 30s and 40s and you're male or female, there's this understanding that it's like a male thing, but women have heart attacks too.
Right.
And you should know what your cholesterol is.
Okay.
If you have genetically high cholesterol, it will show up right away. It's not like because you had a burger and fries last night, it's going to look higher.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's like it will show up in your and they'll start you on a program.
At that age in snowboarding, with the accessibility of cameras and it being cold, and you also getting to ride only weekends because your resort's only on the weekends, you don't film. So my introduction to a lot of filming was skateboarding, because it's easy. I'm out in my backyard. I got the damn thing plugged in if I don't have the battery to the extension cord.
Rad.
And we're filming skating, like that's snowboarding was like, oh dude, I got this 360 from 1997 to show people, like that's all I have. Like there's nothing. And just so you guys know, I love clips. Like it's an obsession, it's like, it started that day in my driveway, with maybe even a boombox playing. So that's like how you're getting your tunes and, and then you're learning how to mix it on an analog mixing board or something. But,
like almost like a reel to reel. Like,
exactly. Yeah. But skateboarding was, snowboarding. I don't have much stuff from that time period because first of all, who are you going to stop? You're snowboarding, you're going down the hill. Like you don't have time. Like nobody, you're out of school. You're loving it. You're snowboarding has like, I think skaters who thought it was too much of a bite of skateboarding are coming around to it now. Cause they're like, these dudes have the mountains. They have something special. That's like, they could do the same damn thing over, and maybe you could say that for skateboarding. I'm like kind of losing what I'm talking about right here, but
there was hate, and like the
but
94
it's changing a little bit because I've even seen some of my friends. I've even seen some of my friends that were like these skate purists be like, "Damn, snowboard's kind of fun," That's great for dudes like us.
I love snowboarding. I love snowboarding, and
yes,
I mean, if you lived where I lived, which is amazing. Like this winter was insane.
Rad.
I mean, we had, April, we got 11 feet of snow. So that's every day in April was a powder day.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And then in December and early January, I mean, it was just insane, like how good the powder was.
It's incredible.
It's like we talk about Utah POW. Keep talking about Utah POW. That's all I got to say.
Lamar would just pay, and I was really hooked up with Freeman, you know what I mean? So I was ended up, whether it's Damien and Dana or whoever we're kind of going filming with. So it wasn't really a Lamar project.
Got it.
But they got their play out of it because then I had, shots from up there and video from up there and mag shots and, they got their promotion. So Bert understood that, from going from our circus needing to do half pipe stuff to go, okay, I can understand that, we'll go out and get real snowboarding, that what we love to do anyway. Just had to do the circus stuff early.
So initially we were banished. They didn't want anything to do with us. Because it was new, it was different. And let's be honest, in less than perfect conditions, the boards weren't, that functional yet. True. We got beautiful conditions. You could shred. If anybody's seen that, and if you haven't, you should look at that 1982 Barfoot promo video. It's incredible. It's an eye-opener and a mind-blower. Yeah. And, but we were all, and I shouldn't claim that we were shredding as hard as those dudes, but we were pretty close to that level. I mean, everybody was just ripping. There was no reference. Everything was like, there was a point when there were 8 snowboarders in the lower mainland, myself and 7 other people. And what get to the point is just that, they wouldn't let us on the hill. So I think at some point we had some talk about, man, this sucks. We're going and we're hiking for 7.5 hours to get 30 minutes worth of runs in.
Right.
which is, it's rad. Hey man, go hike in the backcountry. It's rad. But like, if that's all you have and you see these chairs rattling over your shoulder, you're like, wouldn't it be nice to be on one of those, you know? So, and there were little stories, you know, one year somebody hiked up past the first chair and somehow snuck on to the second chair up at Whistler or wherever it was. And so there were little blips of things, you know, but it was still completely outcast. And we get on the phone one day and put on our most professional phone voice, and we start calling the resorts up around the BC coast and started asking them, do you allow snowboards? To which they all said no. And then we'd ask why, to which they all just hung up on us, except Hemlock Valley. The Hemlock Valley is, I guess you would call it the valley region that's sort of outside of Vancouver. They were the only ones that actually humored us and said, well, yeah, we can't let you up because our liability insurance is such that it specifies people need to load and unload wearing skis off the lift. And so we said, okay, well, if we were to load and unload off the lift using skis but carry our board in our arms, would you allow that? And a little hesitation, and the dude on the line was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Wow. We were like, bing, you know, it was like trying to like not act too excited, but like, okay, what days are you open?
Tech 9 got selected to go to the Transworld like team shootout.
Cool.
And they were like, hey, we need a fourth dude. What's up with DC? Are they putting you on or not? We're going to Montreal tomorrow. Do you want to go on this trip and go film for the team shootout?
So it would be board and bindings, Tech 9
everything.
stuff.
Yeah, and Nomis outerwear.
And Nomis, right.
And so I was like, fuck it. Yep, here we go. I'm riding for Tech 9 now. And yeah, went to Montreal and ended up it being awesome. We won the Transworld team shootout that year. Oh, and wow. I was the one that ended up getting the cover of Transworld from that. Yeah. Congrats, and I was just like, and it was crazy because like Capito was also in it, and like Scott Stevens was there, Kel Zima, all those dudes. And I'm thinking like one of them for sure. And when they like revealed the cover, I was like, oh my God, like I was losing it.
Yeah. That so
was like,
sick.
Yeah, that was.
Where was the reveal?
At the offices.
Yeah.
In SoCal. They had like the big like Transworld team shootout like awards, and we didn't know that we had won, but like they were hinting because we weren't really sure we were going to go down there. And no, you guys need to come down here. Like,
yeah, dope.
Okay, but I certainly didn't think it was going to be me. I thought it would be Dylan or Jonah Owen or Derek Dennison, one of those guys, not me. So when it happened, I was pretty hyped. But and that's when I was like, well, I guess I made the right choice of going to Tech 9.
For me, I felt like the only thing holding me back was my skin was the only thing holding me from bursting into the rainbow. Like that's what it felt like. And so I felt like I was going to just be absorbed into everything. And it wasn't just the heavens or the clouds and the rainbow. Like I was going to be absorbed into the dirt under my feet. Like it was everything. And so I really was like, okay, I get it. Like nature has this power and we are connected to it. And so if we ever feel disconnected from this world or disconnected from ourselves, like nature is the place to go. Like 100%. I feel like I can reset at any time by getting out and connecting with, I mean, why wouldn't we be that connected to it? We're all here to share energy. Like, why wouldn't we also be sharing energy with nature?
Yeah. When we started Robot Food, it was more of just based around like, we were just frustrated with the lack of control that we had over the creativity of one, not so much of our snowboarding, but like the way our snowboarding was portrayed. Yeah. And that's like via music or like the way the edits ran or whatever. And, you know, like, and I think for the time, you know, Standard did a great, I mean, they were amazing. They always have a place in history. Their films were great. Yes. But they were always pretty cookie cutter in a way of like how they approached it. TB4 is the same approach as TB8, you know, like, so it was just kind of like the same kind of formula. And we were just tired of it. So I remember we were in Hemswood all together. It was like Jess Gibson, who was filming for the time for Standard. And then it was like UC, and Johnny Makinen, myself, Travis, and I think Ingelsman was there maybe, and then and I'm probably missing some other people, I think Pierre Whitberg or something like that, because we were in Himms at all. We just had like this meeting of the minds kind of thing, like this, hey, we're going to revolt basically. Wow. And we talked about building, hey, we should do our own thing. And it was more based around like just, creative freedom of being able to like control the music, control like the, just every aspect of it. And
the filler, the vibe, the way the parts are laid.
And we wanted to have fun.
Out.
We didn't want to like hotbox the editing room. We just wanted to like do as much as like just create a lot of fun things and let our personality shine a little more.
The first real trip we went on, the first like kind of like travel adventure, we drove Artie's truck out to Jackson Hole. And we were out there and it was some other like kind of co-project with a couple other skiers. It was like Kevin Andrews and Griff Davis, and we're like, we knew him from Tahoe, like from Squaw and Tahoe, and those guys were great. And it was like, we've never really been on a trip with skiers, like they do their thing, we do our things.
Yeah.
So we drive out there. Graham and I are in the back of the truck, like Graham's just drinking beer. I'm like, dude, that fucking beer's cold. Like, you want a beer? I'm like, no, I want a fucking something warm. I want a fucking blanket.
Yeah, nice.
And so we just went all in the back of the truck the whole way. It was fucking roots. And so we get out there and we finally could stay in a hotel. And I was like, turn the heat on.
Yeah, I did a bunch of Arctic Challenge. We did, I think I was part of 9 X Games and
holy shit.
Did the 1 Olympics. I think I only actually was able to ride in half of them because half of them I was injured.
Yeah.
Including the one I got injured right for the Olympics and I couldn't practice at all. I tore my Lis franc.
What is that?
It's a ligament that holds the bones in the middle of your foot together.
Oh, God.
And I ripped it apart. So the doctors wanted to send a screw through the middle of my foot.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I got to drop in the half pipe in 12 days.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't even walk. So I showed up on crutches and they tried to pull me from the team. I'm like, I'll sit on my snowboard and go down. I worked hard to get here, which is super selfish. I'll admit. They had Ross Powers is there to take my place if I couldn't ride.
Oh, poor Ross.
I know, after winning in 2002.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I'm riding. Actually, the day of, I took one practice run. Like, we're good. Next run, qualified 3rd.
Nice.
And then practice went great going into finals. And like, all right, TV hold, everyone take one more run. Took one more run and broke my wrist.
Oh, God, no.
But whatever, still ride. You can ride with a broken wrist.
This is nuts. So your foot is fucked. You've got a broken wrist. And your
back was seized too. I couldn't turn to the left.
Oh, my God. And you're in the half-pipe finals.
Yeah.
In Torino.
You can push through anything for a few minutes. So.
Oh, my God.
I actually had a pretty good run going. I just was going a little bit bigger than I was in practice, and I landed past it in the half-pipe.
Yeah.
Snapped the nose of my board off, and that was it.
Wow. Property was a big point. Like, I was 33, and I was like, well, okay, I have this dream, as a kid, and am I going to do it, or am I going to not do it? I could easily go live in a condo and be set.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, well, I want to see what this looks like. And so I found this property through Tiffany Jones. She was my realtor, and we snowmobiled up there and got lost. But I was like, if it's anywhere close, I'll take it.
Nice.
So I made an offer. I looked at a couple other, like, more houses in Donner.
Okay.
But for a quarter of the price, I can get 40 acres.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I don't need anything fancy. I owned a house before. I know it's a lot of work. So just give me like a place to rest my head. And I want to be in the snow so I can actually walk out my door and go snowboarding.
Rad.
It's done enough of it traveling. I still love to travel, but like if I have no red tape to shoot photography, like I could do anything. I could set up for weeks, even in the summer getting ready. And that's kind of been my niche, just kind of like offering, again, something unique.
So unique, yeah.
More just wanting people to wake up a little bit, on the off grid, the consumption of what we use.
You went so deep in that. At one point, was the chairlift not going to run on like the creek? That was.
I'm still dreaming that. Yeah, and I'm not perfect of any of this being like off grid.
No, 100%. I hear you, man. It's a philosophy more than it is like you're blazing a path.
Yeah, you just try. And I've spiraled a little bit when you start thinking hard about it all. There is no clear answer.
Right.
And it's just a sad one that you do kind of see. So it's like, well, okay, life is about moments. I'm going to do the best I can to experience nature. And so that's where I'm up at 7,000 feet. And
wow.
Get 20-foot base of snow.
Was it designed for 20 feet of snow? Where would you get that knowledge?
I didn't really calculate it out much.
Oh, wow.
But I have, my cousin worked in the metal industry.
Okay.
Built parking lots and stuff. So
yeah.
He bent this I-beam that's the curve of the cabin. And I was just asking, how much can it hold? And, he's like, well, if you put this post, it should hold, 4 or 5 cars. I'm like, okay. Because I'm at 430 pounds per square foot.
Okay.
For a snow load.
Yeah.
So I forget what it comes out to, but it's a lot.
Hell yeah.
But what I learned is I spent 1 year just kind of getting familiar with the property, and I realized the wind is my friend. And so the wind blows a lot of the snow off the cabin.
Oh, sick.
Acts kind of like a tree well around the door.
Yeah.
And so these different things kind of I tried to listen as much as I could to be more in harmony and work less.
I was thinking about this earlier because I knew you were coming over, and I couldn't even tell you the damn video parts that I was in when I snowboarded, because I had a different mentality about how I saw snowboarding. I love to snowboard, obviously, but what attracted me to it is that it pissed people off. Because I was an old punk rock kid back in Orange County in the punk rock scene. Sick. Back when No Doubt was an actual punk rock band and not a glam band.
Yep.
And I grew up in Big Bear Lake, but I moved down to Orange County when I was early in my teens, and then I went back up to Big Bear Lake, and I skied like everybody else that was around at that time. We didn't have snowboarding, and all my buddies were snowboarding one time, and we went up night snowboarding, and I don't even remember the board I had, but I want to say it was either a Sims or it might have been a Lamar, one of the two. Somebody let me borrow, and I was chasing this girl. And she was cute. I was trying to get after her, and she snowboarded, and so I went up, and she freaking smoked me, man. She was laughing at me. Remember, every part of my body was sore, but that's how I got into it. And once I started it, I haven't skied since. Right. And nothing against skiing, but I just didn't have a reason to do it. And I got into it because, when I went into the line at the ski lift to get on, the skiers hated me. And I was like, I grew up skiing, and I was like, what the fuck is this guy's problems? But when I moved down to Orange County, I got into surfing and skateboarding and stuff like that. And I just loved how much it pissed the establishment off. Totally. And that was always my draw to snowboarding, was more of a community of kids saying, fuck the norm.
Totally.
I think Craig's that was the thing. We were at San Moritz before we did this trip, and Craig won the World Cup in San Moritz, halfpipe. He beat Sean Palmer. They were 1 and 2. That was kind of a funny scenario. Terry Kidwell was supposed to go on the trip, but he hurt his ankle really bad, which kind of sucked.
He wasn't there.
Yeah. But yeah, that would have been, I think 9, it was the last year he was actually competing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, he moved right into free. Yeah. It's all about movies and free riding.
Did you guys talk a lot on the trip? Like, is that where?
Yeah, this is probably the first trip I really had an opportunity to know him, because I'd shot him for a couple of years in contest. And then at Baker, I shot him in 89. I shot him at, the Burton team had a house in Truckee. They built a quarter pipe there, shot him there. So.
But he was the man at this moment. He was the man. He was the world champion. He was pushing stuff at Burton. Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, you got Jason Ford and Brushy and everybody else too. It was a good crew.
Yeah.
The Truckee house was full of stars.
My band played Festival.
No way.
I was the MVP of the first Festival.
Yes.
So anyway, that time with K2 was dope. And so like my friends from Spokane grew up and went to school with Luke Edgar and Haley and that whole crew that was running K2 at the time.
Rad.
And so Mike and the guys would come and cook at this retailer Mount Rainier hike every June. And so that's where I met Ted Irwin, who at the time was the Northwest rep. and for K2 and for Dragon. And then, so I met him, he lived in West Seattle, and, he would be like, you know, I was good at hiking. I would work and get stuff done, and I was good at talking with people. And so he would be like chasing me. He had, for years, he kind of, through all these little events and stuff, he was like trying to pull me into the industry. And I'm just like, I'm good. You like, you give me I was like, okay, I need 2 boards and a pair of goggles. Like, what's the least I need to do so I'm not obligated?
And so I buy a snowboard and it comes, and you know, it's funny. It's like, I don't even have to close my eyes, and I can see my kitchen or my mom's kitchen and me saying, hey mom, can I borrow your credit card? I want to buy a snowboard.
Yeah.
Buying a snowboard, it comes. I run across the street because we lived on a hill.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I've been to the hill.
Back in the days, there was snow all winter.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know, about a foot deep, pow,
Yeah.
grass, throw my feet under the straps and do a couple wiggle turns down to the fence at the bottom. And I was like,
that's it.
That was rad.
That's it.
And just like stayed out till, well, way past, I mean, it was dark. It's summer or it's winter. It was dark in Calgary at 3 o'clock. So I stayed out past dark. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. But like just stayed out until I was worn my legs out.
Right.
And came back in and went, Mom, can I borrow your credit card? I want to buy 6 more of these because I know this is going to be the raddest thing ever. And we can sell them to other stores.
So in 80,
that was 1980.
You're 17.
So I was 15 because I wasn't
15.
Yeah. And my mom, like, I still can't believe it. You know, it's like single parent mom, no money. Like she supported us by being a nurse and going door to door selling encyclopedias.
Like, you know, I found myself over the years, like being very positive on things, and then you're in the flow and then things happen and you don't necessarily realize that you're actually bringing it.
Right.
It just happens and you're like, oh, it happens. And then like one thing leads to the next. I found that I realized that even way more when I go the other way. If I go negative, and then you start your day negatively, and then something else happens, and then you're like, oh, you're angry, and then it attracts more. It attracts more negative outcome and negative experiences, and then you're like, you're angry about it, and then it just comes back.
Yeah.
But what I learned is that you always have the choice to switch that. As humans, we can just switch from negative to positive very quickly.
Now that we're older, it's a little easier.
Of course, life's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to get challenges. You're going to get things that's thrown at you. Yeah.
So I got sponsored by Barfoot in high school.
How?
Andy Coughlin basically vouched for me. So I was competing, and you know, you go from these things where you just want to snowboard and do it and learn how to do it. And then you go to these contests because it's like, oh, I want to go to the contest and see other people and see how I do. And you get results, and they're marginal. And then you're like, I want new equipment, but it's costs money I don't have. So if I can get it for free, we'll get sponsored. And in my high school, the Halls, Steve and Greg Hall lived there. Greg was on the first Burton team. And so he's part of like the first catalogs and all that stuff.
Oh, rad.
And then Steve would get all the free stuff from Greg. And then Noah Brandon was in my high school. Oh, and so they were getting free. So there was like already a connection, like they're getting free stuff. Maybe I can get free stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I wanted to do something different than Burton. And Barfoot, you know, Chuck responded, and Andy, you know, gave him a call and said, yeah, you should pick him up. And so I went to the Purgatory. They were like the time trials, they called them.
Yeah.
In 88. And it was my first year out of high school. I was sleeping on the floor at the Barfoot house.
Oh, wow. Like Chuck and Ernie and Evan and all those guys?
Well, it was a team house.
Yeah.
So it was like Estes and, you know, some of those guys. And so I was sleeping on the floor there, and then riding the pipe, Steve Hall, my friend, comes up and says, hey, Jake asked me if you want to ride for Burton. And I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, I'd die to ride for Burton. He's like, well, I'm like, you're kidding, right? And he's like, no, I'm serious. And so I went down and talked to him. I talked to John Yusko, who's the manager. And next thing I know, I'm reading a contract and, you know, moving over for product.
Amazing. Yeah.
Product and incentives.
I think when I was younger as an artist, I was more worried about what people wanted and maybe working towards what people wanted. Mm-hmm. And then I just started working in what I wanted to see.
Right.
And even though you do make art for people, I think it's important as an artist to be able to go, you know what, I want to see that art. You know, I want to do that thing, because then you're going to get the best out of it.
Totally. You're
going to produce your best artwork. You're going to, like when you do commissions for some brands or whatever, sometimes they put too much on you that they go, oh, can you just change this? Can you just change that? You know, well, no, because that's my artwork and you're just commissioning me just to make art for you now, because you can't paint a picture.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Not in a dickhead way, but like that's how sometimes it feels like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You just want to draw a picture, but you don't know how to do it, so you're going to get me to do it. And change it so how they want it exactly.
I went up to Canada to go try to find a cliff to launch off, right?
Yeah.
So I bought my old snowmobile back from Thin Air Motorsports in Truckee. He had bought my snowmobile for like $2,000, and he wanted to put it up in his shop because it was the one I had backflipped, right?
Oh, rad.
So I said, hey man, can I buy the sled back from you? And I want to take it up to Canada to go do the snowmobile base jump. So I had a parachute for an ultra glide airplane that I had attached to the back of the snowmobile, so that when I got off the snowmobile and opened my parachute, I would then deploy the parachute for the snowmobile. So find this cliff, and it's not very big. It's maybe like a 700 or 800 foot cliff, which seems big, but it's really not that big
for a base jump.
Yeah, it's not that big for a base jump. So I went off it, did a real slow backflip. Filmer and the photographer both missed the shot. I open up my parachute. No. My parachute cracks open, rips the back bar off my snowmobile. Snowmobile does like a 600-foot lawn dart.
And they didn't get the footage of
Missed the shot.
No.
So it sticks nose in, and it like literally looked like a lightning bolt to the hull of the snowmobile. Like it crushed it like an aluminum can. So when it did the backflip, it stayed nose down and just went. And we had to go up and like pull the snowmobile out and like be sure that all the parts were taken, and we put them into a net. You know, a lot of people, the next year when I did it, and we got it on film. So anyway, I did have one shot. Okay, so I had one video camera shot that my buddy Miles Dasher shot from the side. So you see me go off the cliff, wah, you see me flipping, and then I go out of frame. And so you're like, whoa, that was just like a 300-foot backflip on a snowmobile. Like, what did I just see?
Yeah.
So I sent it to Jason Moriarty, and he looked at it and he goes, man, you know, that shot's gnarly and it's super rad, but like, instead of letting the cat out of the bag, how about next year we go back up to Canada, we go get 2 snowmobiles, film it out of the helicopter again, and get the shot. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
I didn't know anybody. I just moved out there. I was a busboy, and I knew my brother, and he knew Tom Burt and Jim Zellers and Bonnie and a couple other people, Palmer. I didn't really know anybody.
Right.
Myself. So I'm just like busting tables. And one day I was driving over this little pass back behind Breckenridge to go over towards A Basin. There was this kicker on the side of the road.
Yeah. I'm
like, I'm going to pull over and hit that thing. So I started hitting this thing, and these guys walk out of the house, and it's Nick Parada. It's Nick Parada and his friend Pat Solomon. So we just hit it off instantly. We started sessioning this kicker together. And then one thing led to another. We became friends. I started, hey, I shoot pictures. Can I shoot some photos to you guys? So it was Parada. I started shooting photos. And then Andy Hetzel lived out there.
Yep.
Zach Bingham. I met him. So I started shooting photos of those guys. And then I basically shot that whole season. I bust tables and shot photos. And then that season, the first issue of Snowboarder magazine came out.
Sick.
And I submitted photos and got a bunch of stuff published. And then at the end of that season, Pat Solomon, he wasn't like Nick. He wasn't like a pro snowboarder. He was a guy that went to film school. But after snowboarding with him all year, he told me in the spring when we were all kind of parting ways, hey, I went to film school. I want to be a director. Do you and your brother, this is totally off the cuff, do you and your brother want to make a snowboard movie next year? I'm like, a snowboard movie? And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to film. I know how to shoot photos, but I don't know how to film. So he's like, well, I know how to film. I can teach you. It's just like shooting photos. You just load the film in. It's film.
Yeah.
It's aperture. It's focus. It's framing. It's the same thing. So he asked us if we wanted to make a movie. And I'm like, well, let me talk to my brother about it and think of how we can get some funds and talk about it. And I was like, that's a rad idea. So I came back to Tahoe that summer. I had finished Breckenridge, came back to Tahoe, and my dad, when we were in, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, he gave us $7,000 each. Is like this is your money for your future. I'm going to put it in stocks for you and invest it. And then when you get older, if you want to use it to start something or whatever, you can use it. And that $7,000 turned into $15,000 a piece. So we had $30,000 a piece. And we're like, it was like roulette, 30,000 on black. Let's make Totally Bored.
Like, I went on a lot of trips with some really great filmers who were really awesome. I went on a lot of trips with filmers who did not want to get out of the van to film my thing and were not shy about telling me that, and or being like that, just not getting out, or like when they're filming you and they're just like on their phone the whole time and you're like dropping, or it's just like, and this isn't like me making something up because I feel it in my mind. I'm an emotional girl. Like, this is fucking legit. And I would fucking be like standing on the drop-in ramp, or like I would usually just like try something like absolutely insane and like get tacoed on the rail, but just like almost do it. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, maybe. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm running a risk here. It was more like, the next trip, this filmer's filming me, and these dudes are like giving me a bro tow into this rail. The next trip, it could be like the other one that I went on where no one would get out of the van to help me, even though I would like shovel for everyone and fucking hustle and stay out in the cold and get frostbite just to like make sure that I was helping them, and just hoping that they would see that, and that when it was my turn finally, they would do that. And then they wouldn't, because not because they're bad people, but just because they don't care and they're not paying attention to me because I'm not in their fucking squad or whatever it is, or their idea is like that I don't really know what I'm doing. So they're just not even thinking about you in any way, shape or form, even though you're a rider on the trip. But yeah, it was more that like, I have to get as much done here in case the next one I go on is like that other one that I went on.
Like a dud, right? Yeah. FNRad shout-outs this week to all the guests this season. Thank you to all the sponsors, and thank you to all the listeners. You guys are the best. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans and brought to you by FNRad Snowboarding.